Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to be covering the topic of how to avoid the big three business killers. Today's influencer guest is Will Pemble, the founder of Gold Boss, and Will is based out of San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome to the show, Will. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Mike. Right back at you, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, the first thing that I'm going to say, even though we're going to be talking about business today, you've got to go and check Will's, what I'm going to say, crazy obsession with roller coasters out. You can go check him out at coasterdad.com. Will's been featured on Amazing Interiors, on Netflix shows. We'll talk more about his accolades and what he's done with web.com and things like that before, later in the show. But as a coaster freak, for you guys who know me and follow my stuff, I like roller coasters, big theme park sort of thing. So when I got the chance to interview Will, I'm like a kid in a sweet shop. So I apologize for being a little bit giddy there, and I even fluffed my opening lines there. So super excited. But as we wrap and introduce this a little bit more about the structure of what Will's going to share with us today, I just want to sort of say the speed that the business is moving, it means that there's so many balls to juggle for entrepreneurs out there. You need a core focus. You need to drill down on the basics. You need to get, do the basics right. The blocking and the tackling, as we say. If you're going to get those wrong or get them out of alignment, you could be in trouble. And often, whilst you might not think that those basic stuff are important, and you can get pulled wide into, let's all do the fancy stuff and the exciting stuff. Sometimes doing the basics, really get the positive results. And often if you don't do the basics right, they can compound up over time, and then suddenly they creep in and bite you and say, hey, where did that come from? So what we're going to talk about today is these three big business killers. So before we get started, you could connect with Will. You can search him online. Just search Will Pemble, P-E-M-B-L-E. For you who are watching on the blog, you see the show links before. Listen on the app. All the links are in the app there, whichever channel that you're listening on to. So you can connect there. And again, you can check out the work that Will's doing at goldboss.com as well, where you can download a book, watch some videos, and get involved with the content, that Will's producing there. So let's just share a little bit about Will's background. We're going to take you back, I think, Will, and we're going to sort of probably start pre-web.com. And just how did you get into that? Because if you look at what web.com is today and the billion-dollar business that is, I think you exited that about, was it 2006 or 07 or something like that? But yeah. Obviously you founded that, and then what that's become today, and give us a little bit of your background and your career to date.
Sure thing. Okay, so my professional career, if you could call it that, and I'm still not entirely sure that that's what it is, but my career as a technology guy started back in what my kids call the 1900s, and so think back to 1990 something. My first business ever that you could like look at and identify as a business. It was actually a virtual reality company, because I saw this cool virtual reality technology and I fell in love with it. And so I borrowed some money from my parents and Liz's parents, and we built this virtual reality entertainment center. And I, to this day, I say that was like the best business I ever drove into the ground. It was wonderful, good fun, and it was whimsy. And I thought I was going to make $1 jillion, and it failed spectacularly. But one thing we did in that business was it was this wonderfully themed thing, and you'd go in and put on it's like Oculus, but times bigger, and you'd go through this maze and play the things. We also had, just as part of the entertainment theming in the stores, we had these little internet kiosks, because this was back when the internet came on a dozen 3.5-inch floppers, or what my kids call. It's like, oh look, it's like a save icon. So we had people would go through them all, and they would stop and like surf the web and in the store. So from the ashes of that business, we pulled the Internet information, the Internet Explorer information kit, the connection kit, all of those different things. And we started a little ISP, and that's a whole story in itself. But so we built one of the first ISPs in San Francisco, internet service provider, for those of you who just think cloud. And that was how you connected to the internet, because once upon a time, that was a thing you had to do. You had to go actually connect to the internet, it wasn't just like air, right? So from the ISP, and we became one of the first ISPs in San Francisco. We learned some wonderful technology tricks to connect people. We learned some wonderful hacks for the phone company so that we could connect people borderline illegally even, but to grow fast, because we never had any money from the ISP business. So we grew that really big, and then a real internet service provider, one of the big ones, came and bought our customers and our technology. But when I say technology, that should be like in lowercase, because it wasn't. It was not very technical. From that, and so that was kind of like the first exit, and we made some money, and it was pretty cool and exciting. And you have to keep in mind, when I built the VR company, all I wanted to do was like just play VR games. I was never in it for the money. I was never in it I wanted to not have a job, right? I wanted to like wear shorts my whole life. And so the ISP thing was interesting to me and fun, and I learned that technology. And then we got paid some money when we sold that company. And that was the point at which I found out you can buy stuff with money. And I was like, wow.
It starts to give you a choice.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, nice car, huh? And so this is how those guys get those nice cars. And so the ISP exit was kind of the first time I was introduced to, wow, if you do something that's commercially viable, all of a sudden people will pay you money. And by the way, we kind of had fun doing it along the way. And so I started to shift my idea at that point. And this was late 90s, right? This is like 95 or something. I started to shift I was a child. Sorry, Jamie. You're a child, Jamie. I'm just like, 30 years from now, you'll agree with me. And I mean it in the best way. So, but I started to kind of shift my focus, and I thought, wow, I can have fun, goof around, and make money and have cool stuff. And then I could be like a kid with shorts and an American Express card. So that led to so we ran the ISP business, and then I learned a lot about technology, and then we built along the way. One of my ISP customers was a technical trainer, and she and I started working together more and more. And she said, wow, you're really good at building this thing. Maybe we could build a training company. And so the next thing that happened was we built this training company that started out of kind of like, not the ashes, but sort of the bones of the ISP. Now we sold all of this stuff. We had this office, we had tech, we knew what we were doing. And so we built this technical training company, and we started teaching people how to be Microsoft certified systems engineers and Cisco certified network professionals. We started doing that hardcore networking training because I learned it along the way, and it was fun, and we were both pretty good at teaching. And that became one of the fastest growing companies. And and so people would come from all over the country. We had offices in San Francisco and Denver. Wow. And people, networking professionals, would come from all over the country, spend 2 weeks with us, and go home certified in either Microsoft or Cisco. So we got really good at that. A company that was bigger than us in that space came along and bought us. And so we sort of became a pain in the ass to this bigger training company. And so they bought our students and what technology we had built. We had built some simulators for those different kinds of things and all of that. And so we did that, and we got paid again. I was like, oh my gosh, all I have to do is build something, be a nuisance to somebody who does it better than I do, and then they'll like buy me to stop the nuisance.
Yeah. And you get a better line of shorts and a different colored Amex card with the mix.
Well, at this point, Liz and I, I married Liz in 91.
Yeah.
And so at this point, we've got a little bit of money in the bank, no kids, and no jobs. And so Liz and I decided we would go off and just like go knock around the beach in southern Portugal.
Yeah.
And we were on our way to do this, and I get a call from a headhunter, and a guy calls. I'm going to go really fast through this, Mike. So then I'm pretty sure you started this. So I get a call from a guy that says, hey, I just bought a domain name, and I don't really know anything about the internet and stuff, but I think I want to try to do something about it. And I heard about you from the thing in LA. I remember he was an LA guy. And so this guy had purchased the domain name web.com. And so he hired me to do something with it, but he didn't know what, and I didn't know what. to make that short story kind of short, we started out sort of in the domain name business, sort of in the email business. We ended up doing what web.com does today, which is sell domain names, provide web hosting services, provide website design services, and then other kind of B2B stuff that happens a little bit below the fold,
yes,
if you will. I was incredibly, I cannot overstate just how lucky I was in that period of time to meet the people I met, to be surrounded by the technology that I was surrounded by, and to have the customers I had, to just be in the right moment in time. And so the web.com adventure was where I learned how to build a great web hosting company, because I think arguably, objectively, you could say that web.com is that. It's a great company, and it's
a $1 billion business, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was around it, right? I was surrounded by incredibly smart people, and so I would never take full credit for that.
Always a team event, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the gang, and I was like smart enough to say yes to questions and get out of the way when the smart people had ideas. But along the way, and so we sold that company, right? And so we built it, started out. My quick story about that is the first web hosting account I ever provisioned took me and my friend Dean. It took us 4 hours to provision our first web hosting account. And the last one on my last day at web.com, it took us 4 seconds. So we got much better at that kind of work, right? So, but incrementally better, you keep working on something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but after I sold web.com, and this kind of brings us to Goal Boss, after I sold web.com, the thing that they didn't buy when they bought, because they bought our technology, they bought a couple of patents, they bought, all the stuff that usually gets sold. I was like, oh, by the way, did you want the leadership system that we developed along the way? Because that's how we were able to succeed. And they said, I was like, yeah, we'll take it from here. Thanks, buddy boy. I'm like, really? You don't want the thing that like makes everybody here incredibly awesome? That's because I promise it's not the tech. We're exactly the same as everybody else. So it's like, no. There's customers, tech, servers. You keep your touchy feely stuff. I'm like, okay. And so,
thank you.
Yeah. Right. And so again, it wasn't from the ashes, but it was from the bones. It was literally the skeleton, the rock on which the web.com house was built. Yeah. And if you look at web.com's evolution in the years after they bought us out, it was not just like up and to the right. It was like a very rocky, there's been some crazy stuff. But when we were growing web.com, we were growing really fast. We didn't have, I subsequently bought the domain name in the company from the guy. He was retiring. My lawyer called it it was like a leveraged buyout, only smaller. Again, lucky. I'm an incredibly lucky guy, and I've been surrounded by generous, brilliant people my whole life. When we were growing, we're trying to like run with the big dogs because we've got this big dog brand, but we didn't have the money. Yeah. And so the only thing we had, Mike, was us. The only thing that we could make incredibly better was us. Yeah. And that's the rock on which the Goal Boss house is built. And because everything else anybody can have, right? Except the contents of my heart and soul.
That's it. And it's that passion and authenticity and enthusiasm people get into, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's like the whole story. And then so we sold web.com in 2007, and I've been doing Goal Boss. I've been teaching people about the big 3 business killers ever since.
Yeah. And so when Will's not on Netflix, Facebook Watch, YouTube, and being featured in, I'll let you look at his Facebook page anyway. It's like Huffington Post, NBC. I'll put all those in the show notes, but it's quite extensive and humbling to see this success. And I know you say that, you've been lucky, but sometimes you make your own luck. You put yourself in those positions. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you it's having that courage to believe in yourself and have that passion and enthusiasm to do that. And like I say, Will today is the CEO of Goal Boss, experts in communication, delegation, time management, coaching in high performance teams. Will's also written a book titled Goal Boss, The Art and Science of Getting Stuff Done. You can get that on Amazon, all the usual stores. We'll put a link into the show notes in there as well. But a quick one, Will, what would, I'm looking at Goal Boss on the shelf. If I'm in Barnes & Noble, I'm on Amazon or whatever you want to call it. What would I get out of it? What's the main thing that I could expect to get out of my investment of the dollar for buying the book?
What you'll get out of the book, Mike, is specific, tangible, doable action steps. Yeah. I've read a bunch of business books, and with some wonderful exceptions, most business books, in my view, they describe a wonderful world. They tell a beautiful story. Imagine like the beach in Maui. Oh, you should go to the beach in Maui. It's fantastic. Great. How do I get there? What do I look out for along the way? Where do I sit on the airplane? Is, like if you're flying Southwest Airlines, seat 9C. That's where you sit on a Southwest Airlines 737. It's the best seat on the plane. Yeah. And for some reasons, but what frustrated me about business books was I never got any of that. Nobody told me how to get there. There was no map. Nobody told me about what to look out for on the way. Nobody told me about what to focus on, how to check my thinking along the way, how to engage others. So I didn't want to write the freaking book, man. If you've ever written a book, it's agonizingly painful. I don't know how Dan Pink does it, right?
I don't know. Keep going.
But that's why I wrote the book. So what the book is it's a practical guide to getting things done, whatever those things you happen to think are important, and it's not for me to say. So that's why I wrote the book. Yeah. It's how to get stuff done, quite simply. And there's steps in there that show you how to do it. No parables, no nice stories to, so
just real tangible, get it stuff done, which is real.
Yeah. And hopefully it's an easy read.
Get it sorted. So what we're going to do, we're going to move into the big three career killers in a moment or two, but I'm going to quickly take you back to roller coasters. I did say this. And so if you've not seen it, go and subscribe to Will's channel, Will Pemble, search it on YouTube. There's great, I think it's a 5-minute trailer or something like that, or whatever it would be. And it's Will's thing. So we have a roller coaster in our back garden. Will, not me, that's you. And you've not only built one roller coaster, you've actually built 5. Just spend the next 2 or 3 minutes telling us how that came about, how coasterdad.com came about, the story about your son from the theme park coming off vacation. Just give us a 2 or 3 minute overview, and then we'll get stuck into it. But I just think it's an absolute treat, because when you talk about entrepreneur, and the reason I'm referencing this for the listeners, on whether you're watching this on the blog or on YouTube, whether you're listening on the apps, what you got to understand is, I think Will's been exceptionally humble when he says he's been exceptionally lucky. Yeah, I get the talented people around, and that's great. Exceptionally, but you've got to be able to see the vision. You've got to be able to see past the original horrible bricks or crazy ideas. And you've got to know when to move it from a gamble to a calculated risk. And so I think Will's been a little bit humble here. So what we're saying now is most people have a swimming pool in the back garden in Northern California. Will actually has a roller coaster. Tell us more.
Okay, Mike. So once upon a time, this was probably in 2013, 2014. It was the end of the summer. My kids were 10 and 12. Lyle was 10 and Ellie was 12 at the time. And we had just come back from our summer vacation. We were on the East Coast of New York, and we'd been to a really big amusement park called Six Flags Great Adventure.
Yeah,
and they've got
Six Flags.
Wonderful, tallest roller coaster in the world, fastest roller coaster in the world. And Lyle, my son, loves roller coasters. He's a data guy, right? He's like off to Wikipedia, learns everything about roller coasters. And so he knows all of them. And so when we take a trip, he knows where we're going to go and where we're going to stop.
Picking them out. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless him. And today, so we're like 3 days away from school starting. We're all a little bit sad because summer's about over. I know that time is fleeting, right? I know that I'm never going to have a 10-year-old boy ever again in my life. And so we're just sitting in the backyard, and he was like, oh, the roller coaster was so much fun. He was like, Dad, wouldn't it be great if we had a roller coaster in the backyard? And I've said it before, it took me less than 10 seconds to just say, Lyle, you're just right. It would be great if we had a roller coaster in the backyard. And that moment changed everything in my life, everything. And because I didn't just make the normal dad calculations. Oh, what would the insurance people think? That can't be done. It's impossible. We're going to, oh, I know, son, it would be great. Wouldn't it be cool to have that? And then it would have just like gone by, just like an idea in the wind. It would have just blown by. Lyle would have been fine. But I thought of a couple of things. I thought we might could learn something about this. It would be a lot of fun. And then the thing, I'll be totally honest with you, and here's where the humility goes out the window. I'll say, I thought to myself, when he's 30 and he's at work and they're hanging around talking about stuff, he's going to say, oh, well, when I was a kid, my dad built me a roller coaster in the backyard. And I was like, I totally want that cred. So that was the genesis of what became the Coaster Dad project and the YouTube videos and all of that. I started making the YouTube videos, and then here's where we'll like shed the humility again. Yeah. I started making the YouTube videos for two reasons. We wanted to show my mom, Lyle's grandmother, Grandma Lois, lives in Kentucky, kind of. Yeah. It's one of the states in the middle of America. Somewhere. And so we wanted to show Grandma Lois how it was going, and then the other thing that I wanted to do is I have an older brother, Larry, and he's we sort of were a little competitive together, and so I basically wanted to show my brother like how much better of a dad I am than him. And it's just an objective fact. I just am a better dad than him. So then Hackaday found the videos, and then all of the rest of that stuff happened. Amazing. But everything you and I are talking today, Mike, because a 10-year-old kid had an idea and some adult, right, or somebody with shorts and an Amex card said, yeah, that's a cool idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, and let's do it. So sometimes, for the entrepreneurs, our show is all about bridging the gap between idea and successful implementation, giving them the strategies. And sometimes you just got to fly by the seat of your pants. You got to think about it. Don't, as Will says, don't let that idea pass in the wind. Get hold of it, pin it down. Yeah, sure, you got to explore it, but make the commitment and say, go and do it. That's how you're going to change the world. Yep. That's how you get involved with web.coms. That's how you build up multi-million or billion-dollar businesses. You don't do it by just drifting and paddling at the same speed as everybody else on the highway. You've got to make the change. So we exceptionally tied on time with Will's time today. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into these three big killers, Will. And so share with us what you see are the three big career killers. Let us know what those three are.
Sure thing. So I mean, the good news is the third one is going to make this whole time problem just go away, right? And so we don't have a time problem as far from where I'm sitting. I mean, we could visit, and I'd love to sometime. But here's the thing: if you look at the failure of any organization, any person, any function, any process, I promise you that whenever an individual or a team fails, it boils down to one of three things. It's either communication, delegation, or time management. Those are the core of business failure, and they're the core of business success. Think about, just like take a second and think about something that's gone wrong in the past. Oh, well, I either didn't make myself clear or I didn't understand what the other person was saying. I had a communication problem. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. So if I want to grow a big company or a big team or a big organization, I've got to learn to get things done without doing things myself, which means I have to be an expert at delegation. I have to be able to assign a task to somebody and know that they're going to get it done. I can't just hope for the best. And delegation is an art and a science. Yeah. And then the last one is time management. We've all got the same 24 hours in a day. I've got to make sure that I'm only doing the things that only I can do. I've got to make sure that I'm not just using my time to just get as many things checked off the list as I possibly can, but I've got to make sure that I'm using time to enrich myself and the people around me. It's got to be juicy. There's got to be wonder and joy and focus and purpose and accomplishment built into every second of every day, because we're all going to freaking die someday. It's just going to happen. And so people who waste time, it baffles me. Now, communication, delegation, and time management, talk to anybody who's successful. That's the rock on which the house is built. And now the great news about that is that each of those things, they're not talents, Mike, they're skills. Yeah. So no matter how good I am at those three things, I can get better. I can always build my skills And it's my obligation to myself and the people around me to do that. But you don't have to be super charismatic, wonderful, light up the room sort of person to be a great communicator.
Yeah.
You can just use the communication loop, which is built into the Gold Boss book. And so that's what I coach my clients to do, is to improve on those three things. And then there are subsets, obviously, but those are the three. You show me a failure, I'll show you communication, delegation.
There'll be some type of connection between the communication, the delegation, and the time management.
A direct connection between those.
What we use here in our agency, Will, as well, is when you talk about this 24 hours in a day, we say that we're all members of the 168 club because there's 168 hours in a week, and it's how you best allocate that. So briefly, and I know you've talked around them in summary there, but communication is one of the big three. If we could pick one sort of strategy for improving communication that would help the listener's business, and if they didn't do it, it could hurt them, what would that be?
Okay, that's a really great one. And without communication, by the way, delegation and time management, they don't happen.
Yeah, it's cause and effect here, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you had to pick one, and that's why it's always at the top of the list, right? So the thing about communication that I have seen over and over again, and we're all subject to it, right? I fall back into it myself, is if you and I are having a conversation, or if two people are having a conversation, chances are I'm thinking more about me than I am about you.
Yeah.
Right. If you and I are having, and like, here's one for all you video conferencing people out there. If you're having a conversation on Zoom with somebody, I'll bet you $50 that you've got your video as close to the camera as you can get it, because you're more interested in how you look than you are in how the person you're talking to looks, or facial expression, or all of that. I'm always more interested in me than I am in the person that I'm talking to. And that's how we phrase it, by the way. We say, I'm talking to someone. Yeah, well, guess what? Maybe you should listen. And so communication is about losing yourself in the thoughts and feelings and ideas of the other person. And this is where it can get maybe like a little bit touchy-feely, but communication, when you and I are having a conversation, that's a kind of intimacy. If we're doing it right, I'm not worried about how I look. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm not waiting for my turn to talk. I'm listening to what you have to say. And so the first key to it is, what's the old saying? It's like my grandmother used to say to me. It's like, you've got one mouth and two ears for a reason. So, and
use them in the proportion that you've been giving them.
Yeah, it's just listen twice as much, and don't worry about what you're going to say. And so that's really and truly, if there was one takeaway from this conversation today, stop worrying about what you're going to say when you talk to somebody else. Just go to listen and see what you can get out of it.
I get it. And I think when, there's a great saying, I don't know who credit this, and I apologize for not crediting them. Normally I would, but there's a saying out there, isn't it, where you say, listen to understand, not listen to reply, if that makes sense. And I think that's what we're getting at here, isn't it? Which is an amazing point. Yep. So if we were to spin that in the same way from delegation, Will, which is the second big killer sort of thing.
Yeah.
What would be the one thing then? There's the natural obvious that if I delegate that down, that frees me up to do bigger, better work, or more worthy work, or where I can get the best value. I get that. But is that what you want people to concentrate on? Or would you say that there's something else with delegation that you want the listeners to focus around?
So delegation is the second one for a reason, because you can't manage time unless you know how to get things done without doing things yourself, right? So like as we speak, I'm getting a whole lot of things done, but I'm the only one who can have this conversation with you. Yes. So if I could send somebody, just like before we got to talk, I had a couple of back and forths with Jamie, because Jamie can do things that only Jamie can do. You can do things that only you can do. Only do what only you can do. That's the first rule of delegation. And so when a task or a chore or a project or something comes along, the first thing I ask myself is there anyone else on earth that I could get to do this for me?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else besides me who could do this? Because if there is, I need to look into seeing if somebody else can do that task for me, because then it allows me to do what only I can do. And we all have skills and talents and passions that we should be focused on and doing. Maybe for some people, I like to do the laundry, right? For some reason, I just like to, right? And so I do it, but an efficiency expert might argue, it's like, dude, you're totally wasting time doing the laundry. There's like anybody can do laundry. I'm like, well, I don't think anybody can do it like me. So that's an indulgence of mine, right? Yeah. For me to do laundry is an indulgence because my time is incredibly valuable. And there are some people who it's their job to do laundry. It's their profession. And again, I'm not being like snotty about that. There's a lot of people who could build a roller coaster. It's not that complicated, honestly, right? I could delegate that shit. I could hire somebody else to do it, but it's part of how I express who I am. So you figure out what are the things that not only what are the things that only I can do, but what are the things that I should be doing? What is the best way that I'm expressing who I am. Brilliant. And connecting. And then
sometimes we lose track from that, don't we? We lose track that we feel obliged to do this because either it's job title specific or I'm expected to do it, where sometimes, like you say, who am I? How can I express? How can I get the best value? Is there somebody else, could do those? And that's not delegating down in hierarchy or, aggressive stance. It's just better use of time. And you can, maybe you don't change the world by inventing the iPhone or something, but, you may be in a situation where you do something or you don't miss one of these opportunities, like Will said, and manage to grasp. And if you were busy doing menial tasks, would you miss one of those opportunities to get involved with web.com, et cetera, et cetera? Who knows? You can flip a coin, but the reality is if you focus on, like you say, the best impact, you're going to get the best results for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you figure out what are the important things. What is my and this kind of like this gets a little bit bigger, but like what is my vision? What is my mission? What are my values? I know those things, and then I can line up everything I do to those. And again, all this is like in the book, so it's just practical. But once I figure out the things that only I can do and the things that I should be doing, there's a whole lot of other stuff left that needs to get done. And what I've done in the book, and I won't torture any of us through it right now, but what I've done in the book is there are steps to delegation. There's a step-by-step guide, and you have to do all of the steps, and you have to do them all in order. Yeah. And if you do, again, none of it, everything that I try to coach my clients on and everything that I teach, I say, I was like, guys, I'm not going to teach you anything you didn't learn in elementary school. Like not one thing, right? Use your words, stay together as a group. If you see somebody struggling, help, right? Got a question? Ask. So there's steps to delegating. There's a way to do it so that when I delegate a task to someone, I have at least 80% certainty that they're going to get that thing done the way I wanted it done. Yeah. Because I've also got rock hard skills in communication. Yeah. And so communication.
Clearly communicate it out there and make sure that it's done to a specific profile or specification or whatever you want to call it.
Because most of us, if I'm delegating something, usually I'm delegating it because I don't want to do it, right? And it's this emotional, it's like fight or flight response. Like, I don't want to do that. It's like, you do it. And what I'll do is I'll like run into the office like, hey, I need you to put together that marketing report for the thing I'm doing tomorrow. Okay, great. Okay, boom. And I'm out of the room before anybody can confuse me with facts, push back, ask a question that I might know the answer to. And so delegation, you got to be prepared to do it well, but it's not the same thing as, and this isn't mine, but it's not the same thing as abdication. It's not the same thing as just like throwing it into the room and running away. You can't run away from these tasks. You've got to see that they get done. So the art and science of delegation is crucial. And if your business fails and if your career fails, I promise you're not good at delegating. And that's the bad news. The good news is you can be. It's a skill. It's not a talent. It's not something some of us have and others don't. It's a skill. Anybody can learn to delegate.
Yeah, it's great input. Thanks for the view on that, Will. And I know with my team, what I've always said before is that it's all I'm empowering you. I'm giving you the opportunity to get better, to show. So it's not about just passing off. There is some stuff that gets passed off because it's too low ticket or whatever. But be empowered. Go make it your own, and have the idea to make it better as well. So it's great input. And then quickly as well, Will, on the final one, the time management, we've, if you think about it here, we've moved out, of the communication. We've got the delegation in place. Time management, I've seen everybody have the folders, the stickers, the labels, the diaries, the highlighters. You've seen all the time management things in the world and the systems. But give us your view on how that will hurt or help the listeners if they get that right.
Yep. So I've built systems and structures for a whole lot of things. And I know time management. Time management, it's like diet books, right? I mean, it's never ending, right? There's always room for another time management book. I will never write a book about time management. I will never show you the urgent, important, not important, all of that, it's like, let's take some time. I don't do that. Time management is the least concrete of the three, because time is this like imaginary concept. Is time really linear? We don't know. And so time is really, really hard to get your arms around, because it's a philosophical construct that humans have created to define and handle something that we're incapable of understanding. And so, but we can boil it to some important things. My time management strategies are as follows. If I'm supposed to be somewhere at a certain time of day and I'm not there, you can assume I'm probably dead. So I show up when I say I'm going to show up. And then the other thing is, if you schedule a meeting, let's say we've got a meeting Thursday from 9 to 10 or whatever. If you schedule a meeting with me, I'll make you two promises. I'll be ready to go. I'll be in the room and ready to go at the time the meeting starts. This isn't like chit chat and all of that, and we start 10 minutes later. No, we go at the time we're supposed to go. And then the other promise I'll make you is that I promise to get up and walk out of the room at the end of the time that's been scheduled for the meeting. So it's like, hey, can anybody hang out for another half hour? I'm like, no, I have literally been fired from jobs for saying, nope, I cannot do that, because you don't get to steal time from me.
Yeah.
Every single body, right? I had, it was January 12th, 2012. I was in the airline lounge in Salt Lake City, and I was on my way to Kentucky to visit my little sister, who at the time was very ill, and she had been for a while, and she was dying of stage 4 breast cancer. And my little sister passed away at 7:28 in the morning on January 12th, 2012, while I was sitting in the freaking Crown Room, because I had something really important to do the day before I went to see her for what I knew would be the last time. Mike, I have no idea what it was that I had to do the day before. I don't know what was so important, but I know that at that moment I ran out of time, and so did she, by the way, which might be the important part of the story.
So sorry.
But from that moment, a couple of things happened, right? My bullshit tolerance dropped to 0. I didn't want to talk about anything that was trivial. My pain tolerance went through the roof, right? I can just get on my bike, pedal until it's time to stop pedaling, because nothing, physical compares to that level of pain. And my value of time went through the roof, because I know that we're all going to have that moment. I know that the sun is going to go down this afternoon. Yeah. And so time management is, and it's not about these, what I consider to be silly, little things. And I write down and I make to-do lists and I put things in quadrants and all of that stuff. I mean, you don't need a freaking urgent, important. You don't need those 4 quadrants to know what matters.
Yeah.
You need a little self-awareness.
I mean, the most difficult thing, I feel your pain, and I'm so sorry to the story. The biggest thing I take out of that is, you didn't know what you were doing the day before. That you could have spent that with your sister, and that's the pain that you deal with, isn't it? And, it's heartbreaking. And we only have the time, there's only one thing guaranteed, and that's we will take his last breath. And, long live health, everybody healthy. But, the reality is, understand your time. If you you've got a pile of money there, you wouldn't just ad hoc throw it away. I mean, some people for philanthropy and that, I'm all for that. But ultimately, you manage or invest or create or protect that. So, if you'd only got a limited amount of time, why would you just waste that? So it's a great message. And thanks for sharing that, Will.
Not at all. Nobody spends their last minutes wishing they'd spent more time on airplanes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that, if anybody's not read or searched Steve Jobs' last statement from his deathbed, go and watch that. He just put Steve Jobs' last words, and there's a statement about what he said on his deathbed, and where he got all the money in the world, but he'd run out of time and things like that. It's really humbling and things like that. Before we wrap out, Steve, Will, we just building on that Steve Jobs thing there. But before we wrap out, these 3 skills that we talk about, and the word here is skills, guys. You can learn these. You can get better at these. You can commit to these. These are a discipline that you say, right, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm going to get better at them. So these 3 skills, how do they fit in with the listener's everyday life? And is it really a silver bullet or not? Just give us a closeout sort of statement on that.
So the big 3, I call them the big 3 career killers, the big 3 business killers, because they are, right. If you're bad at these things, you literally have no shot. When you reach the limit of your capability in communicating, that's where your career stops. That's where your boss finds somebody else who gets it. And again, there are mechanics. There are steps you can take to just continually get better at this thing. The best one for communicating, I've found, is this thing called the communication loop. And I teach this to my clients, and it's silly, but boy howdy, do successful people do it a lot. Whenever I say something to someone, I really want to make sure that they understood it. I just say, hey, could you just play that back to me so I know I did a good job of communicating it?
Yep.
And then I shut my mouth and I listen, and I hear back what they said to me. And if it's right, yay. And if it's not, I'll be like, okay, really close. Could we just fine tune a little bit? Yeah. And that way, especially if I'm assigning tasks and I'm doing stuff, doing stuff in business, what most leaders or what most entrepreneurs do, because we're all, crazy and type A and all of that sort of stuff, is we'll just like run into a room and go, blah, got it. And then everybody's like, got it. And then I run away. Yeah. And then they're like, what just happened? And so as a leader, you have to bring, you've got to bring, kindness, humility, listening. And part of it is like, okay, I just said some things. Could you say those back to me so I know I did a good job communicating it?
And I suppose that loops back into the delegation, that that it's going to be done 80% right to that step by step as you go from that side.
You bet. Yeah, there's a bunch of steps, right? You pick the right person, you make sure that they've got the resources, you give them an opportunity to ask questions, you follow up without taking over. It's like, oh, you know what, just let me do it, right? You avoid that. My favorite one at the very end of the delegation list is you give the person you delegated to full credit for success. And if they fail, you take the responsibility for the failure, because that's what leadership really is,
Great piece of advice. Love it. So we were slightly over on time. I apologize.
Not at all. No worries at all.
So let's pro tip this down. Let's talk about the big 3. The listeners are engaged. We want to avoid the career killers, the life killers, the business killers, all those things. If we were to sort of concentrate everything down into 3 sort of pro tips, just let's bullet point those down for the listeners, Steve.
Sure thing. So for communication, listen. Try to listen a lot more than you talk.
Yep.
When you do talk, take a little bit of extra time, make a little bit of extra effort, and ask the person to play it back. Use the communication loop. Can you play that back for me so I know I did a good job communicating it? And then after you say that, listen. Because that's the only way you're going to know. Because I'm going to want to hear what I want to hear. And if you can just keep it top of mind, it's like, okay, I want to hear what I want to hear. I'm biased in that way. So if somebody says something that's close, I'm going to say, that'll be fine, right? So don't kid yourself, right? Yeah. Listen. So communication loop. Listen twice as much as you talk. Communication loop. Honestly, you should probably listen 4 times as much. I'm a big Pareto fan. But So that's for communication. Listen and use the communication loop. Have people play stuff back so that you know you did a good job of communicating it.
Yes.
I guess, Mike, this would be a good opportunity. Can you just kind of play back what the important parts of the communication loop are for me so that I know I did a good job of communicating it?
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is when we've done that, we're going to ask you to sort of say, could you play that back to me? And we're going to listen, and we are going to then, I'm trying to, you put me on the spot here. I wasn't expecting that question.
I know.
But we're going to listen. We're going to ask them to play back. And we're going to go through that continuous loop. And I know you referenced Pareto in there, the 80-20, that's why you're going 2 times more, things like that. So I apologize, I'm concentrating heavily on here, and I'm probably doing. I know. You got a lot going on, and it was a little bit unfair, but it illustrates a really good point, Mike, because a lot of times when you or I or anyone, a lot of times when you're asking someone, especially when you're like asking for a task to be done, or you're assigning a thing. There's a lot going on up there, right? You're not the only one multitasking. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the only time that I'm probably not multitasking is when I'm trying to get somebody to do something for me. Then I'm fully effing focused on that, right? You're focused down.
And it's like, okay, I want you to do this. You got it? But just because I'm focused doesn't mean the other person is. They're still multitasking. They're checking the clock. They're doing whatever it is. And they're sort of like, okay, can you play that back for me? And then you'll get what we just saw, which you get like, I didn't
quite get that.
I didn't expect that was going to happen, right? Even though we were talking about the communication loop, I had no idea you were going to do it to me. So what happens So what happens in organizations is we learn as a team that happens just all the time.
Yeah.
And so like, I know now that when you come to me, it's like, oh, that Mike, dude uses a communication loop, man. I just know. And so when he comes in here, I better stop and listen because he's going to ask me, there's going to be a freaking quiz at the end of the
replay.
And then all of a sudden you don't have to pay for the same real estate over and over again, right? You can have a conversation, you can assign a task, you can ask a question, you can relay some information, and you know you got it done.
Perfect.
And that goes to time management because now I don't have to come back a week or a month or whatever later.
Check in.
Yeah. I had a client, and stop worrying about the time for this call, Mike. I had a client, or not a client. I had a company that we were thinking of working with, and they were like really interested in how we do stuff and all of that. And we had a conversation. The conversation took about an hour. There's 3 of us on the call, and then they were talking about doing a strategic partnership with us, and so dude sends me an email a day after the call. It's like, oh, that was fantastic, man. It was like, when can we like get on the call and like take this to the next level, have another conversation about this? And I was like, I don't know, I'm pretty much always available. I'm pretty good at managing time. You need me at like 3:00 this afternoon. Chances are I'm available because I manage the hell out of my time. And he's like, oh, well, no, that's going to be probably, I'm probably not going to have anything until like, sort of like the end of October. And I'm like, and then I'll write back. I'm like, so let me see if I understand this straight, just so that I know that I did a good job of listening. The other day we had the first conversation in what will probably be 10 conversations before we get anywhere with any of this. Yeah. And you're saying you want to do the second conversation 6 weeks from now. Wow. I was like, so I'm going to save us both a lot of time and just back away from this because that's not how I do it. If you want to, and we all do that, right? So let's say you have that conversation with somebody and you're not going to talk to them again for 6 weeks, but when you gave them all the information, they didn't get it. Yeah. So then you go back to square one 6 weeks from now.
You're repeating and investing and wasting time all over.
Oh my God.
Big a gap. It deteriorates down, doesn't it? Because I see it myself because we have meetings and you come out there and then guess what? The phone rings or the email goes or Slack, something comes in Slack or, you get an opportunity and, that's not dropping and being disrespectful to what you've just done. But what we're saying is there is a distraction. So can you imagine what happens 6 weeks later? How many distractions? You would spend the first meeting just covering what you covered before. And then there's silly more questions. You repeat. And that's where you're draining the time, you're draining the enthusiasm. And I mean, to me, that's why I don't work with a lot of large corporates. I prefer the sort of medium to, the sort of 2 to 20 million sort of pounds. So what's that? About 3 million to 30 million dollar businesses, because I can get decisions faster. And that's not just an aggressive sales strategy, Will. I like to work with people who have got the fingers on the pulse, who can make decisions, who are interested in making things happen. Yeah. I'm not interested about booking a meeting to discuss a meeting, about when the meeting will happen, to then set the meeting, to eventually have the meeting. I drained the will. I worked with public sector when I was in wheeled asset finance. And, it's like, shoot me, please shoot me. If I didn't have a wife with 2 kids to come home to, shoot me. I've had enough. So I don't work with those super ridiculous large corporates. And good luck to them. There's a place for that, and there's people who service that. Maybe they've got more patience than me. And that's not because I'm impatient. It's just because it just drains the life out of me. Sure, I've got to be concise. Sure, I've got to be professional. Sure, I've got to offer value. But if there's something of interest, let's get it done. Let's sit down and let's start making those improvements, within a reasonable time frame that works for everybody. But, being drawn out 6 weeks. And can you imagine what, like you say, what that call 3 to 10 would have been? What would it be that 20 weeks later, 30 weeks later?
Yeah.
It would have drained you to death, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I was just like, look, and by the time we get a year down the road, we're not even going to know what we were talking about. And so I'm like, you know what, you guys are awesome. Call me if you need me, but I can't. I can't. I will not remember. I already don't remember what we were talking about. And I'm just like, it makes no sense. So, but having, and at the same time, right, I'm like, I'm just like a little mom and pop consultancy, right? Yeah. I can't just like throw clients over the side of the boat. I have to, so having that clarity, having that focus, having that courage to say, you know what, this isn't for me. Communication. And that's what we did at web.com, right? We were all we had. We couldn't afford to pay for the same real estate twice. We couldn't afford to have the same conversation twice. We had rules around what we could communicate. So if you came to my office, the CEO of the company, and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a $12 a year domain name only customer, that was not permitted. Yeah. Because before you could even get the words out, hey, I'd like to talk to you about, we've already spent the 12. Yeah. Right. It's already gone. We would start, so and then you think about time management. We would start every meeting. I would go around the room and just like do the salary calculations. Like, okay, guys, this is going to be a 50-minute meeting. Based on who's here, this meeting is going to cost us about $4,000. Yeah. So
what we're going to get out of it.
So do the by the minute math, and then just whenever you speak, just try to make sure whatever you're saying is worth at least $16,000 an hour. Just set that goal for yourself. And but there's like little things. Another thing on time management is I'm cognizant of. Everybody has a thing they do. It takes maybe 10 minutes a day. It's no big deal. It's just like a little administrative nothing task. It's like, just like 10 minutes a day. It takes me, I get it done. It's no big deal. It's, a monkey could do it, but I do it instead. Okay, that's fine. But 10 minutes a day is 41.6 hours in a year. So you're wasting a week of your life, organizing 3x5 cards or whatever. And you'll have to explain to Jamie what a 3x5 card is.
Absolute show card. Yeah.
He's a good guy, but again, they're just smarter than we are. And then you mentioned Slack, Mike, and I haven't said this to anybody, but I think like based on the air date, I can pretty safely say. So I'll tell you something like really cool. Embargoed until this gets published.
4th of November, I think we're out.
Yeah, awesome, perfect. So. By the 4th of November, we will be in live beta for what we're calling the GoalBoss AI. And what the GoalBoss AI is it's a plugin for Slack.
Wow.
And essentially what it is, and I'm pretty sure it's the world's first artificial intelligence coach. Wow. And I will tell, if you're interested, I'll tell you how it works.
Please tell me more.
Okay.
First and foremost, I'm absolutely addicted to Slack. I even have my house running on Slack for like what we do at the farm and things like I have a Slack channel for that as well.
Okay.
So, but I know that's not, your GoalBoss AI, but it's just that, obviously I'm addicted to Slack.
All right.
I'd love to see the integration. Tell me more.
Okay, cool. All right. So again, my whole thing is communication, delegation, time management. It all starts with communication, conversational nuance, blah, blah, blah. Once upon a time, this is a quick one. Once upon a time, I had a client and they were addicted to Slack. They used Slack and everything. And they said, hey, Will, you know what? We're going to just plug you in the Slack feed and then you can sit over there. And so they added me to their Slack workspace. And I hadn't used Slack very much at that point. But for a couple of weeks, out of the corner of my eye, I just kind of see the feed go by and I see the conversations. And every once in a while, Dan would get into the general channel and he would say, hey guys, I'm going to be working from home today. And nobody was ever surprised when Dan was going to be working from home today, but they were always a little bit disappointed. And I started to see like these conversations. And so there were 20 people in this organization. After 2 weeks of not very seriously paying attention to the Slack feed, just kind of watching the conversation go by, I think of it as kind of like standing by the river, right? So just 2 weeks of standing by the river, watching the conversation go by, I knew everyone at that company because I'm trained in it, right? I know where people need to focus because, it's my job. And so I knew who had strengths and opportunities for improvement in different areas. I knew where to start with everybody there because I just stood by the river. Yeah, and
interacted and watched and learned and sort of you just pick up the little nuances.
I didn't even interact. I was just like watching it go by because I didn't know Slack well enough, and I was and again I managed my time, and so I didn't take a whole lot of time, but I did watch this thing happen, and I was like, if I could teach a machine to stand by the river and look for both strengths and opportunities in the area of communication, delegation, and time management, and maybe add in some other things, that'd be pretty cool, I thought to myself. And so me and my guys, and we've been working on this for like 2 years now, and you are literally, Mike, the first person that I've talked to about this because, and it wasn't my plan to talk about it today, but you said November 4th. I was like, oh, wow, we'll be in beta then. So what the Goal Boss AI does is you install it. And I'll send you an invite if you want to.
Please do. I'd love to test it.
If you want to get in on it. So what happens is the Goal Boss AI, it just stands by the river. And what we do is we use natural language processing and machine learning to look for conversations that result in, and then, some technical things happen. And then what happens is we can produce a scorecard. And so we can show you what your communication, delegation, time management scorecard is, 1 through 5 stars. Wow. And then we can suggest things to the user. So let's say I'm in there, or let's say, hey, I'm going to be working from home today, right? So working from home today, our natural language processing system would identify that as a time management issue and possibly a communication issue. And then we'll also score sentiment, right? And so how do I feel about that when I say that? When other people talk about that event, how do they feel about it? Is it positive or negative? And so we use these things and we built an algorithm and blah, blah, blah. And so then the AI will know that Dan has some opportunities for improvement in the area of time management. And so what we can do is we can just, so now the AI will just pop into the feed every once in a while into Dan's feed and say, hey, Dan, maybe check out this 2-minute video on time management. And if you want, you can take a free
content.
Yeah. And then we can, if you want, you can take a little 3-question quiz and that'll like up your score a little bit. And then if you want to see your score, you can, type / Goal Boss scorecard or whatever the / command is. And you can look at your scorecard. And so that's one piece of it. And then on the other side, we could say, we could ping you. Let's say we've got you in there and we know that you're pretty darn good at time management. And so then the AI will send you a note. Hey, Mike, you are crushing it. Way to go, man. You are crushing it with time management. Would you be interested in mentoring Dan a little bit in time management?
Amazing.
And if you're interested in that, we can show you the Goal Boss coaching methodology. The Goal Boss app has a coaching methodology, which is a step-by-step process. It's you can just like do coaching, right? If you wanted to be good at coaching, I could teach you how to do that in an hour and a half. And we actually have a talk that we do at conferences called the 90-Minute Coaching Challenge. And it started as a bet at lunch. I was like, you can't do that. I can too. So we can do those things. And then the other thing that we do is we, along the way, just through the feed, we'll say, hey, Mike, do you want to take a quick personality assessment? Take about 5 minutes. And then we'll ask you some questions. And at the end of the thing, we'll know what your communication and your behavioral style is. And if we know that about everybody in your feed, when you send a note to Jamie, someday you can say, hey, Jamie, blah, blah, blah. The Goal Boss app might notice that you're doing that. And so the AI will notice that you're having conversation with Jamie. And if it's on a Monday, the AI might say something like, oh, hey, Mike, I noticed you're talking to Jamie today. Keep in mind that he likes to have a little bit of like personal chit chat before you get to the business. Maybe ask him about his weekend. And so there's these little things. And this, Mike, is what I do in my coaching and what I do with my clients.
It's amazing.
And I've
especially
always
the sentiment part of it. I'd never even thought about it because obviously when you do social listening, we run social listening in our agency. So, we're looking for positive, neutral, negative comments and in the sentiment. Then it allows you from a better customer service perspective to go and say, hey, look, you may be unhappy with this, or you've had some great things to say about us. Thanks for being a great ambassador or whatever. But I've never actually thought about it, how you link that into psychological assessments and training identifications, which then also links through, if I'm right in saying, to potential additional revenue streams, because, hey, would you like to get involved with the coaching, which may be a subscription or whatever it may be, or it may be part of the program that they already pay. But there is so many links there just by listening and learning and watching and sentiment. And it's absolutely astounding, amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited about it, and thank you. And I'm grateful for your enthusiasm, because I know you wouldn't just play at that.
No, it's sincere. I get it. And just one thing here, and I'm sure you're aware of it. There's an app out there because Jamie leads it, not me. I do some strategic work for him inside the agency, but we're a HubSpot agency partner in the marketing side, and that's what Jamie runs on that side. And plugged in, we have an app called Crystal Knows. So I don't know if you've come across Crystal Knows.
Yeah, I know them well.
Yeah, that's great. And what it does is, if I'm going to sort of go and speak to somebody, like, respectfully, I plug it in, and then I can see it, and they'll say, hey, they like to say this, or cut to the chase, like you said about the chit chat and get down. So it allows me to prep using Crystal Knows. It's never 100% right, but when I'm interviewing somebody, just get straight to the point, let's get him there. And you probably noticed when I started off at the meeting, what do we like for time? How do we need to work with? And I'm looking at your profile and I'm sort of saying, hopefully I've got that something right. So I'm a fan of that, but I've never seen it understanding, because that's sort of me profiling somebody in Crystal Knows before either, and am I doing a sales pitch? Am I doing an interview? Am I wanting to get something out of them? I want to get a meeting. So it's different sort of terms. But I've never seen it in what I'd call day-to-day comms, because you look at our Slack channels, literally they are full. All that data in there, it's not really being used from my context to think, hey, how could I use that data to learn better about my white label contractors that I've got in India, in Central America, in States, in Canada, in the UK, in Germany, for what we serve there. But it's just conversations. And really, I don't really know anything about that person. And what this light bulb's got in my head, and it's your light bulb, not mine, because you bossed it. Excuse the French there, but you bossed it. Or the pun, should I say there, is that I could take all those conversations, that hundreds and hundreds of those a week, and I can translate them into something that means something, that either means I can better serve my agency partners, agency customers, my team, my staff. I can get better insights into it. I can have upsell opportunities, which maybe, expanded account and revenue lines. Or I could just get somebody to better. I could save an employee leaving because they're disgruntled. I could maybe look at reviewing staff if they're all disgruntled about one person or one issue. Wow. And that's all in the scorecard.
That's absolutely, that's all in the scorecard.
Outstanding.
We look at both intrinsic and extrinsic sentiment. And so we look at not only what you think of yourself, but we look at what other people think, and honestly, we weight what other people think higher than you. But the whole thing. So the thing is, I know that I've always said, I've always said to people, and I'm not being self-deprecating here. I've always said to people that what I do is 80% process and 20% charisma, if you will, jazz hands. Like, hey, look, I'm awesome, right? So yeah, I know I'm entertaining. I know I can, engage the room. I know all of that stuff about me, but you know what? Without process, it's just a fire show. It doesn't matter. And so I know that what I do as a coach is expensive and worth it, but I also know that it wears off. Yeah. So if I'm gone for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, it just goes away. And so I'm like, okay, so then I've always got a couple of questions, right? I know I can coach 10 clients, right? 10 companies. And if I do, I'm busy, and that's all I want to do. I want to coach 1 million companies. I don't want to coach 10. Yeah. Scale. And I want it to last. I want to be there all the time. And so basically what we did was and my stuff is really, really simple. So we built the AI, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be like 80% as good as like having me there all the time. And so I'm really, really stoked about this one because it's a machine. It doesn't get sleepy. It doesn't not show up. It doesn't have,
sick.
Yeah, it doesn't call in sick. And so what we do is we try to help. And so we've got this rolling 30-day scorecard so that I can improve my skills. And then we offer all sorts of content and everything to help you, get better in those areas. And so
it
again,
just becomes convergent, doesn't it? Like you say, it's all linking. It's where the eyeballs are, the data that they're using in, the devices that they're actually in. And, without being spooky, it's like your eyes in the room, and saying, hey, and where you're intervening and guiding and coaching and keeping them on the right track. It's where them tires hit the tarmac and you get that traction and you really get that. That is
and so we're stoked. And we're starting with Slack. It'll be, we're going to build to all of the other platforms, including Google Chrome, which is I think Gmail, how Crystal does their things. But yeah, that's the thing. We take it a couple of steps farther than Crystal. What Crystal is doing is they're looking at your behavioral style. Specifically, they're looking at your DISC assessment, right?
Yes,
they're looking
at it is DISC. It is, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's awesome. And we do that too. And DISC changed my life. I'm certified in it. I'm a student of it. I've done thousands of individual consultations on DISC. And so that's definitely baked into our stuff. But then again, where we go next is we go to very specific action steps and skills. And we're not just trying to get the people who are bad at this stuff to get better. And I don't necessarily, when our system says, hey, would you be interested in coaching? I want to leave coaches behind everywhere I go, right? My goal when I go to coach somebody is that like, I'm just one of the coaches when I leave. Yeah. And it took me a while to get there, right? Because I was going, no, wait, I'm the coach. But now I'm like, you know what? Share it. Give it to everybody. So anyway, I will definitely, I would love it if you would get in on it and give us your candid feedback.
Yeah, we would absolutely love it. And thank you so much indeed for the opportunity to be involved with our beta. You got it. You got the commitment. Just let us know what you want us to do, what the goals are, whatever it is, we'll commit to it. We'll embed it. We'll get it around the team. And we'll see if we can give you some feedback from crazy Brits over here. And it may be off the chart. Absolutely. You might think, hey, this David's left field. Well, it is what it is. We're a little bit stiff upper lip in the Brits.
That's right. We're two people separated by a common language.
Absolutely, you've got it. And I was speaking to somebody on an interview earlier today when I did a show, and I was saying, but the way the American sort of culture and commitment in business to inbound, as Jamie was speaking about it, in the inbound methodology, what we do with HubSpot is, you guys are 2 or 3 years ahead of the UK, and that's not being disrespectful for the UK market. It's just that, you guys just accept it, you just get it, you just move with it, and not everybody, but, in the most, they get it. Whereas here, we've got to sell the change, then we've got to sell what it does, and then we've got to sell why we're the right partners to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we don't mind going through that process. But I always said it'd be great for Jamie to uplift his agency and drop it in the middle of the States, because they just get a lot of faster traction as they get it.
Dude.
Do you know what I mean? And we get that there. And we've got to kick the Brits a little bit harder over here, and they're a little bit more skeptical. So stiff up a lip and jolly good show. Jolly good show, sir. You know what I mean? And things like that. But no, so you may get some left field data, but just be aware of that. But we would be delighted to do it.
We'll take it.
And I think what we're doing for the listeners, because if you stuck around and listened this far, you've been treated to an absolute gem. And I go back to what Will said earlier on, and I was listening in most of the cases. I wasn't, sorry, you put me on the spot there. I'm normally just asking the questions before. But what you got earlier from Will is he's been exceptionally lucky. I think what you've just had is an absolute masterclass in identifying opportunity, assessing situations, looking at gaps in the market. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, I don't care if you're a service business, you're a mom and pop shop, you do manufacturing, you're worried about Brexit, politics, bad economy, bin that out of your brain straight away and start to look at how you can bring value, how you can do something different. You have just been dealt the best masterclass you have ever had in identifying opportunity and taking something to the next level. And don't sit there and say, yeah, but Will's a tech guy and he's got all that resources. You can buy tech, you can buy skills, you can buy consultations. You've just got to be forward thinking. You've got to pin those ideas. And I challenge you as the open mic listeners, shoot me a message using the hashtag the open mic. Message Will, search him on LinkedIn, Will Pemble, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to challenge you to give me the most crazy idea that's going to change the world. We talked about Steve Jobs earlier on. The smartphone. I look back at the internet, one, the internet, and two, the smartphone. How many other things has happened that's really changed the way we live? Okay. And yeah, you could say, oh, Uber. Yeah, but Uber's a byproduct of what Steve Jobs originally did by putting a computer or, in his hand, with the smartphone or whatever. And it has changed the world at taxis, Airbnb with properties, things like that. But what's changed the world? This is artificial intelligence. Are you ahead of it? Whether it's blockchain, whether it's Internet 2.0, whatever it would be, doesn't really matter. But you've just been dealt a masterclass. Will, thank you so much. I sort of listen and I see these opportunities and my mind's going like 1,000 to the dozen at the moment because I'm thinking, how can we do all these? How can we get this artificial intelligence learning thing linked to Slack that makes our agency or our other thing going on, our investments going on, whatever. Yeah. And it is,
you'll literally just click one button and the AI will take you from there. It's like, I'm amazed that it works because I was like, it couldn't possibly work or somebody would have done it by now. But it turned out I guess we're that somebody in this particular instance because there's a lot of people out there that will say, there's a lot of companies like, oh, we're the first AI coaching app. I was like, really, what do you do? It's like, oh, well, we connect coaches to clients. I was like, well, that's not actually coaching. That's not that. And so, and to me, it's just like, it's blindingly obvious, this one. And for the last 2 years, we've been building the thing and I was like, okay, at some point we're going to bump up against it. And then I'm like, okay, that's why nobody's done it. It can't be done. Dude, we're like ready to go. And now I'm so excited that you're excited, Mike, because
big time. I can see it.
I've been keeping this under my hat. And I'm terrible at secrets.
No, it's fine. We're embargoed till the 4th anyway, so nobody will hear this delay. One question, I'm sure either A, it's been done, or you've already thought about it, your smart team has done it, whatever. But I get involved with, I've got a third arm, which is called Growth Engine Ventures, and we're an intermediary between high growth entrepreneurs looking to raise capital and the venture capitalists. Series A, first round stuff, not private equity, growth equity, none of that. It's raising that first 500 grand, million, 2 million, things like that. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if you either know of anybody who does this or it's on your dev profile or whatever. But if you take out coaching people, but using, whether it's Slack, whether it's a platform, whether it's an app, it doesn't really matter, but using your machine intelligence learning to profile investment deals. Because instead of coaching and sentiment, it's what the market's doing. There is specific answers about users, about revenue models, about that. And I just wondered if that could be created. So instead of me having to do those initial calls, we know we're looking at management team. We're looking at ability to bounce back from failure. We're looking at the ability to have that differentiated. We're looking at the ability, to have that, all those sort of things that we're looking to create and see in an investment portfolio about, what the curve looks like on the hockey stick for the revenue, how quick the repayment look, what the return on investment of actual capital is, all those type of things. And I'm just wondering if you did something similar where you have to go through a series of questions, and it's a profiling app maybe, but whether it's some, I don't know, or the forum for VCs, and will that allow you, using artificial intelligence, to pick out the most attractive deals that may otherwise have got passed over because the pitch deck weren't right, or, and I use the term geek, and I use that sincerely, but the geek wasn't good at presenting, and he's missed it. But could the AI pick something out that said, hey, this is hitting the charts and this is a worthwhile investment deal, that might just need a management team plugging in to help the geek, in something else to get that fund. I don't know if you've thought of that or something, but that's something I see, and it's hard work for us to go through and then interview these people, and then then you're asking them questions, and they thought, oh, I've not thought about that, but they say, hey, well, go away and go and do that and come back and see us again. And then to do that, and I'm just wondering if we could pre-profile it, and instead of saying, hey, would you like to be a coach? Hey, have you thought about adding this to your pitch deck? Use this, and then come back to us and we'll relook at it.
Yeah, I think, so obviously the reason that we started with coaching and the reason that we settled on, communication, delegation, time management is if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And so communication, delegation, time management, those are nails. I'm the hammer. And so so you've got a couple of layers here. And so the platform, the framework, we got built, and we said, okay, so we want to look for conversations. We want to look for certain things. We want to measure sentiment, and we want to be able to really, really drill down into the nuance of those things. And we can do that because Pemble really knows that stuff. Yeah. Imagine we go out to my kooky little workshop, and out there I've got like a copper salad colander, and I've got some swirly wires and all that, and I get some wires coming out of the things and lights, and then we put that on top of your head, right? And then we plug the other end into the AI, and then we ask you questions and all that. And so if we can pull what you know about identifying good deals, and what are the salient points? What are the key metrics? What are the touch points of that? What makes it really work? Where are the places that it could fail? Like you said, just like I screwed up the pitch, right? I thought I didn't think she was fat. I thought she was pregnant, right? It's like, dude, how many billions of dollars have been lost because of these ridiculous, what John Cleese, says are like the most hilarious things about being British. It's right. You go ask, what is it? He said this one thing is like, you go and ask them how the family is, but you don't know that their entire family was killed by thieves this week. It's like so embarrassing. So, the British thing. But how many deals have been just screwed up because of that? So we can teach an AI to not worry about that stuff so much, but to really get to the guts of it and to not bring, and so, yeah, I think now I haven't done it. And I'm really clear when I talk about software, I try to be really clear about the difference between something I've built and something that I'm imagining in my head. Everything we've talked about up to now is built. It all exists real. Perfect. What we're talking about now, I'm pretty sure I could pull it off. But what I think we could do is, because for you, when you look at a deal, I'm sure you say in the back of your head, at least, you think, this stuff is just obvious, right? You look for what you look for, and it's easy to you because you're good at it, and it's easy to you because you're experienced, and you're always going to look for probably the same 20 things in a deal. And so if we can quantify those things and measure those things, we can teach an AI to look at, I don't know, 10,000 deals when you can look at one. And if it identifies, it's like, okay, I looked at 10,000 deals. These 19 look pretty good, and then we get you in the room.
And then you see from there, you can put it into an app. From that app, people can download it. They can put all the pictures in there. It's fully confidential. It's done, and it's just going to process it down, filter it down. You can imagine the sales pitch: higher conversion, guaranteed to get your pitch listened to if it meets these minimum criteria. Introduction to a panel of investors ready to spend money in your sector. Smooth, faster, because it speeds up the deal. And you look at the VCs, the cost that they're doing, the cost for acquisition to get a deal done is horrendous. And they're getting, sometimes they're getting 40, 50, 100, 200 pitches a week, and they might be investing in 8 companies a year. Right?
Yeah. And they get, and so how do you like, just, you think about that. You think about the VC, it's like, all right, I got to listen to 200 of these freaking guys a week.
And I'm going to
how can you not be staring out the window? It's like, come on, just like, dude, say something that's going to keep me nominally focused. I've avoided VCs my entire life for this very reason, because I don't like people to be bored by me.
No, it's fun, but it's just something that we totally are not off script. We're still recording. I can cut anything out you don't need. But if you've stuck around with us, we're just talking shop here. But these are ideas that are coming up, and it proves that I do listen, even though Will caught me out on the
You did fine. It wasn't that bad.
And I'm getting all excited here and things like that. But yeah, it's about entrepreneurship. This show's all about entrepreneurship, bridging the gap between idea and successful implementation, because anybody can implement something bad and lose money. It's about doing it right. And, maybe you've just seen, Will is an absolute masterclass for being spotting opportunity. But also what I want you to pull in there and listen there, listeners, is that, can you see, we gave a different idea. I took what I know or what I get involved with, and I pitched it there back to Will. But what he did is, hey, let's take a step back. Hammers and nails. I understand training, coaching, time management, delegation, communication. I don't really understand the financial markets. So it's also knowing when to say no, so you don't go down rabbit holes and start wasting time, by chasing crazy pipe dreams if you've not got specialists in it. But of course, you can bring specialists into the room, as Will just said there. You can tap into that brain, teach the machine. So if you've got some crazy idea that you think is crazy, then, we'd love to hear about that anyway, because there may be an investable thing. It may be a tech startup. I don't know. But by all means, shoot us a message using the hashtag #TheOpenMic. You can connect with Will. Search him on LinkedIn. We'll put the links in the show notes on the blog and in the app. Will, I am wildly embarrassed about the time. Yours, not mine.
It's all good.
Time out there. I can't believe we went off script that much and just opened all that, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that
me too.
It was absolutely outstanding. Thanks for summarizing everything down and being on the show today. The value that you provided is immense. We've got so much in common, from roller coasters to crazy ideas, different sectors being, but the same nails to me as the nails to you. I get that. So it's just an absolute honor. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. I'm so grateful to be here. I really appreciate it.
That's fantastic. And as I said, if you want to pick up and see the amazing work that Will and his team are doing, check out Gold Boss. We'll put the links in, as I said, online. And we appreciate your time for sticking around and listening. This has been a bit of a crazy roller coaster of a ride, if again, excuse the pun there.
I'm known for it.
Yeah, we stuck to the script. We went off script. We came up with some different ideas. We've launched a new product. Wow, what more can you get out of there?
Right.
From there. So thanks for joining us, listeners. As always, make sure that you continue your growth engine development to get in the game. Go do the hustle. Go make it happen. And we're going to catch up with you on another Open Mic podcast real soon. Thanks again, Will. I appreciate you.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.